Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Soul of the War. Today, for our candidate spotlight, we will be interviewing George Gluck, candidate for Congress in the state of Maryland. How are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you.
So let's just hop right into it. Tell me about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get involved in politics? And what drove you to running for this specific seat today?
Okay, originally where I'm from, I was born in Prague, Czechoslovakia. My parents were survivors, capitalist survivors. They met in Prague after the war. Met and they got married in February of 46, had me in January of 47, May of 48 we came here. So I grew up in Brooklyn, met my wife there. We're still high school sweethearts.
Oh.
And then we moved down here after college. I moved first and then she followed.
So that's actually very interesting. What motivated you to want to run as a Green Party as opposed to Democrat, considering that you were a Democrat for so long? What made you throw your hat in the ring? And then also, we all know that it's really, really challenging getting elected as a third party candidate in general anywhere in the country. So what motivated you and sparked you to want to run as a third party candidate?
First, I can't say correct you, but I prefer to use the word minority party rather than third party, because many minority parties end up becoming majority parties.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's probably a better way to call parties that aren't one of the two, Democratic and Republicans. Well, in 1968, when I got to register for the first time, I was looking at a Democratic Party that had just passed and signed President Johnson voting rights legislation, civil rights legislation, anti-poverty legislation. I felt very comfortable signing up as a Democrat. And I continued that way right through 92. In 1992, I donated to then candidate Clinton's campaign, both time and money, based mostly on some good things he did as governor of Arkansas for education there. By 1996, though, he had signed NAFTA. And that was it for me. I realized that the leadership of the Democratic Party had abandoned me. All my friends and I still felt the same way about all those things that we felt needed to be done and continued for the country. FDR's New Deal, essentially, and then Johnson expanded it in some ways. So I looked around back then, and the Green Party was the Green Party in '96. It was a Democratic Party I met in '68. So I became a Green and was active for a while until our first grandchild was born, and then got a little less active. But then, as I said, in 2009, actually in 2008, I found out too late that Marilyn Fraser had died. I was going to try it then, but I'd stopped being active in the county, and the people who ran Montgomery County Greens didn't know me, they knew people, so they said, we can't vouch for you.
Yeah.
So, but a year later, I got active again. A year later, they were active to do that. So that's how it started. I think that the voters deserve a choice.
Absolutely.
And I consider myself progressive, but also a prudent progressive. If you look at my new website, you'll see that right on top. Having been a Green, there were lots of folks to the left of me who were Green Party members. But of course, there were lots of folks to the right of me who were Democrats. Well, whatever left and right means these days, I think it's more a question of class than political, where you are in the political spectrum. So I'd like to run as a regular person. I have no great ties with the Democratic Party. I see them going toward the correct direction now. That's why I switched back over in 2022.
Do you plan on using public financing?
Okay, good question. Actually, I brought it with me if you want to see it. I'm going to do what my opponent, David Trump's done. I've self-financed all along. Okay, he did to the tune of $15 million at the top. I've done it.
Self-financing?
Yeah, he's self-financed.
Wow.
I've done it to the tune of $400 a top.
Okay.
It's $100 to come in, and a few $100 to get this. So this or that, or whatever. So I'm going to do it again. This time, though, I've never collected money from anyone. Well, since the second time I ran for Congress. So I'll do that again, but this time I'll collect money. But all I want to do is collect enough money to send one postcard to every registered Democrat in Congressional District 6. That's it.
Okay.
I have a draft of it if you want to see it.
Are you gonna participate in sample ballots?
No, I'm not going to send out a sample ballot.
Yeah.
No, just this one postcard.
That's good. That's good. I don't agree with sample ballots. I think that they're very deceiving, and so I applaud you for not doing that. And best of luck in your fundraising campaign. So you've run for office 8 times, which is pretty significant. Are you able to look at the camera and just give us some advice as far as like young people looking to run for office that may have lost the race like myself? What's some advice that you can give us to keep going and keep motivating us to run for office?
Sure. So the first time I ran for Congress and lost, I recognized the fact that my views were not being held by most of the voters. But I've also done enough reading now in the last 14 years to know that that wasn't going to be the case for long. As people my age died off and young people came up to be able to vote and to run, their views would be more like views were 80 years ago. There's a book I can recommend called The Fourth Turning, in which they say that. And I think it was written in the mid-90s, and I found it in the early 2000s. And basically, what it says is you have more. They break a lifetime seculum, they call it, into 4 pieces, 20 to 25 years each generation. So your generation has more in common, not with the generation before you or the generation after you, but the one before you.
Really?
That's what they say.
Wow.
And they make some predictions in this book. Some of them were right on the nose 20 years later. Some of them are close enough to be astounding anyway. So it was clear to me that although the leadership of the Democratic Party would not come back quickly, I knew the voters would. As younger people, I still have hanging over my desk a picture and an article from the Washington Post. I think it was a week after President Trump was elected. Students in Montgomery Bay High School just said, "We don't like this. We're leaving school," and they marched out of school and demonstrated. And the Post was there and took pictures, and I've had that hanging over my desk. So I have had no doubt that eventually the voters all around the country actually would become more and more progressive. And we've seen some progressives elected to Congress, still not in the leadership, but they were elected to Congress, and that's why I decided last time to change over and run as a Democrat again. So I'd be at the front of that wave.
So what's that one word of advice to motivate some young person to keep going?
Don't give up. 8 times. Try to estimate where you're going to finally win. And that's what you should look forward to. I knew it was going to be a long time. And so I spent time and effort, but not money. I hate wasting money. I hate wasting my money, anybody else's money. So I didn't waste. I spent a fair amount the first couple of times, but then I decided I would just spend the minimal amount, knock on doors, try to meet people and talk to them. I give out a little thing that says I'm mean, clean, and green, that has QR codes on it, and I give them out to people in the district all the time.
What I think is very inspiring is that you keep going and you keep trying, even in just not deteriorating against your beliefs and what you want to stand on. And I think that is extremely admirable. You see people switch parties all the time, but you really stayed solid in doing I don't want to call it a third party. Tell me what you told me to call it. Minor party. I love that. Yes. You stay solid. And although you are running as a Democrat now, I still admire your drive in continuing to try and press. And I know that eventually you will get that seat. So let's move forward in the conversation a little bit.
Sure.
So we kind of create a safe space for people to speak openly on faith and politics at the same time. So are you a person of faith? Do you believe in God?
Well, that's a difficult question.
Mm-hmm.
I'll answer it in a backwards manner, and you can come to your own conclusion.
Okay.
So my parents were survivors,
Mm-hmm.
Holocaust survivors.
Wow.
And my father lost his first wife and son to the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
And despite that, he and my mother were religious Orthodox Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up that way. I personally can't understand, the claim of having a God that, helps people when, things like that happen. But despite that, my wife and I go to services every week.
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe? No. Do I disbelieve? No. I'm not an atheist. I'd like to think so. I can't say scientist because I'm not a pure scientist, but as a science teacher, and a minor in physics, major in math, and every time I see a new discovery, especially ones that break the atom further down, I keep thinking, how far can we go? When are we going to reach the end? What are we going to see at the end?
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't be positive.
Mm-hmm.
As a scientist, I'd like to be positive.
Yeah.
But I can't be negative either because we haven't seen the end.
Yeah. And what I think you touched on a really interesting point in just saying, how you don't understand how he could, I guess, sit back and watch what happened as far as the Holocaust. And, that is really terrible. I feel, a lot of people deal with that. A lot of people deal with hard times or hard situations in life, but you're talking about a massive amount of people. I get that, but I just hope that one day, God is able to, show the world or even show you specifically, his purpose in everything that he does. So, thank you for sharing that. That was actually really deep.
If you want to read an interesting short story, 15 minutes, Isaac Asimov wrote a story called The Last Question. It's about it deals with physics a little bit, but it's just one aspect, so anybody can read it. Mm-hmm. And I won't tell you what it's about entirely because you need to read it yourself.
Okay.
I think you and your people listening and watching who are religious will get a kick out of reading this story.
Awesome. Thank you. So with your background in mathematics, how do you feel that it would benefit you if you win this congressional seat?
I don't want it to benefit me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, how would you be able to utilize your background in mathematics in the current seat if you are elected?
Okay, well, it's more than just mathematics because I do all STEM. My career was in IT, actually, for the most part. So one of the things I would do is read all the bills. Really read them, study them. I did that the very first time I ran in Congressional District 6 against John Delaney. He put out a bill to make Election Day a federal holiday. Mm-hmm. So I read the entire bill, and as a Green, I didn't get invited to too many interviews like this or forums. But this one forum in Hagerstown, we met before the forum, and we shook hands, and he was happy with me, but he wasn't at the end because I pointed out the fact that federal holiday is not a national holiday. All it is, it just lets federal workers off.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to see a national holiday on Election Day, so everybody could go and vote and wouldn't have to worry about taking a day off from work and losing pay. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't too happy about that. So, I would use my background at STEM, first of all, to try and restore democracy, but also in areas like cybersecurity, which is very big. My hope is if we have any global wars and we're getting closer and closer to them, they would actually be cyber, and so even that would affect a lot of people badly, but no worse than that.
So you feel like you would have a huge impact in cybersecurity and giving that background to the grant.
That's one aspect. Plus, global warming and science, and
Yes.
and other areas.
Yeah, that's awesome. Would you say it's different in your campaign strategy this time around versus last time around? Right?
So, as I said, this time I'm going to collect funds. My hope is to collect $20 dollars from. I'm in the process of trying to find out how much it would cost to send this postcard, one postcard to every voter, Democratic voter for the primary. Worry about that first, and if I can make it to the general, we'll do it again for the general. But it could be anywhere from $50,000 to $90,000. So, assuming, let's say it's $80,000, if I get $20 per person, that's 4,000 people at $20 a person. That's not impossible. My hope is that I have to contact a company that interfaces with the engines that take donations. My hope is to just take money from people. It would be nice if I could just in District 6, but I don't think that's easily done. So maybe just Maryland, that we can do. So I'll restrict it to Maryland, not even outside the state. People from outside the state, much less outside the country.
Well, people that have gotten a felony, do you think that they should have the right to be able to run for office as well?
Well, they certainly should have the right to vote. We put them in jail. We say they've paid their debt to society. If that's true, if we really believe it, then they should be no different from you or I.
Thank you.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't see any difference. And in other, some Northern European societies, even when they're in jail, they're not cooped up like animals.
Yeah.
So they come back being regular people and, ready to take their place in society.
Do you think the same should follow for Donald Trump with following his indictment?
I think that the law clearly states what should be done. I think he's only one. I mean, it's clear we have at least two, maybe three different types of, how can we say it, executions of our laws, for the very rich and then those who, can curry favor with folks, and then the regular folks like us. I think the laws have been stated properly. I understand that it looks political because he's president. He was a president. But if he broke the law, especially in some major ways, which would have totally destroyed our democracy, if in fact what I think he hoped would happen on January 6th actually happened. Thank goodness it didn't. And in fact, that goes on all the time. He's not the only one. It's called stochastic terrorism, right? If you look that
I'm
up.
going to put a definition at the bottom of this.
Okay. And he's not the only one who's done that. But
wow.
There are others who have. And we don't have a law against it. It would be difficult to produce a law, but we should at least recognize it. We should have some way of recognizing it and then making sure that folks, if they did it once, don't repeat it.
Yes.
One way or another.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, you're putting us onto a lot today. I appreciate that. So what, I'm sorry, you had two more initiatives that you're looking to do.
Okay, so there are a whole bunch that deal with democracy. Also, I'm not sure exactly how we can fix this, but there was a RAND article about 2 or 3 years ago. And RAND is not exactly a liberal organization or a progressive organization. But during the course of the history of this country, as productivity increased at about the same rate, so did pay of regular workers, blue-collar workers. And that ended around 1980 because at the time that Ronald Reagan became president, that bottomed out. So instead of increasing with productivity, their wages increasing, it just bottomed out. So there's right now, up to a couple of years ago when this was written, there's a big triangle of a lot of money that did not go to workers. Okay, I'll give you an opportunity to guess how much money that was 2 years ago.
Let's say 100,000.
$100,000 total for the country?
Oh no, Maybe 2 million.
$50 trillion. $50 trillion. Do you know how many?
$50 trillion.
Correct. Now, the average person a couple of years ago, the average family would have been happy with an annual salary of $75,000.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have had
Combined?
that. Combined, family.
Wow.
Yeah. So that would have done that and still left enough money to fix bridges and roads and build a fast train system and all kinds of other things. So the question is, what do we do about that? How do we repair that? I mean, there's so many things that need to be repaired in this country. Money is one of them. I think I sent you a picture of me demonstrating on the floor of the Senate office building for improved Medicare for all.
Yes.
We can't be free unless we're well.
I agree.
And so we all need to be able to have access to doctors, hospitals, and drugs.
But not even just we can't be free until we're well, right? But we can't even excel until we're like get to the point of we are way behind in not just infrastructure but technology when it comparing to other countries. We have to make sure that we are well to make sure we can handle things that need to be handled. And the same goes for paying for teachers, paying our teachers properly. How can we expect a successful future if we are not supporting the people that are teaching the youth that are going to be taking over these roles and these positions in the future?
As a substitute teacher and as the husband of a retired teacher and the father of a teacher and the brother of a retired teacher, I wholeheartedly agree. I've seen, just like anywhere else, there are some lousy teachers, just as there are lousy Congress people. But the vast majority that I've seen are anxious to do the best they can to teach their students. I know my wife gets on my case. We're not wealthy by any means. She says, "Why are you teaching for $100 a day when in Montgomery County you can make that in an hour's tutoring, a student?" And so I get more pleasure from it, and if I'm teaching 30 students and 5 of them get what I'm saying, that's 5 times more than the 1 student I would have taught. So, and I'm not any teacher could write a book about their experiences, good and bad, but mostly good, I think. I know my wife can. I can write a little novella because I've been doing this for 30 years. About it, and it's great. I love being with kids. If you want to stay young, all of you out there, if you want to stay young, work with kids. That'll keep you young.
You know what I think is also interesting to the point that you said where you could go somewhere else and make more money, right? I think that it's really important that we are bridging that wage gap because it will open up doors for a lot of people to be able to do what they love and contribute to society in that way. We don't even know what we might be missing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Without individuals that have not had that opportunity just because they're working 3-4 jobs just to make ends meet, So that's awesome. And speaking on that, what is your take on the current state of the economy?
Well, based on what I said about that $50 trillion, we know, and during COVID, it got even worse. The people who got money from COVID, we created more billionaires, not only here, but elsewhere around the world. In fact, probably more elsewhere because a lot of the stuff we needed to get, we couldn't manufacture here anymore because manufacturing's been sent overseas for, a great deal of it. This pin, by the way, is made in the United States.
Your shoes too.
My shoes too.
Get your shoes.
Yeah. Right.
New Balances.
Right. Yes. And so, it's important for us to, and I think, although there's a lot to say that there are still shortcomings of the present administration, they've done an awful lot toward bringing back business and, recognizing that we need to increase the income of our president. And, we take statistics wrong too, So, for example, I haven't looked at it recently, but if you had a job, 30, 40 years ago as a plumber and you were making $50 an hour and all of a sudden you lost your job and you had 3 jobs making $10 an hour each. So now I think instead of the roles showing there was 1 job that was lost, but 3 jobs that were gained, that means that you're losing a job actually shows up as 2 jobs more.
Mhm.
But you're making $40 less an hour working more hours. So what good is that? So we got to look at the statistics that we use to measure. And besides that, it's not the number of jobs that matter. It's the amount of income, family income that matters.
Yeah.
So you can have 1 job and make enough money,
Mhm.
or 3 jobs and make less. And that,
Mhm.
we know the one would be better. So,
Absolutely, because people deserve to live life and not just work to pay bills.
Right.
So, what are some of your ideas you might have to push forward our crumbling infrastructure and transportation?
well, again, going back to that $50 trillion, we've got to recover some of that.
Okay.
Right. Now, the prudent progressive in me says we just can't grab it.
Yeah.
Because there's something in math and science called the singularity point. If we try to do something too fast, we may cause more problems than we fix problems. So we got to be careful.
Do you believe that happened with the stimulus checks?
No.
No?
No, I think stimulus checks were good. Okay, people needed those funds.
Mhm.
Well, except that, well, when it went to ordinary workers, a lot of those stimulus checks went to businesses that didn't need them. So
Well,
in that case,
then let's explore that. So do you feel that too much money was given out during COVID in different areas? In what areas do you see that? Because I know the PPP loans, now we're trying to play catch up and catch everyone who committed fraud with those loans.
Right.
So it's like, did we throw out too much money out of fear, to recover our economy? And now we're playing catch up trying to recover. So what's your thoughts?
Okay, well, today, coming here, I was listening to a podcast, and it kind of relates. So, we can pass a law that's a good law, but if we don't, usually Congress doesn't go down into the weeds that much. So the law gets sent to an agency. They create regulations based on that law. Now, those regulations can reflect what Congress wanted or not. But even if they do reflect it, the question is, if businesses break that law, break those regulations, will they be punished? So will we actually administer the law and the regulations? And if we administer them, and the punishment is just a dollar amount back, like you said, we're going after that money. But if they made $1 billion and they have to return 100 million, well, any business will love to have that kind of ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, can we create the right laws, regulations? Will we administer them? And when people break them, will they be hurt by breaking them so they won't do it again, or others won't do it? So there's a lot that has to be done in order for us to. So again, we have to be prudent about how we try to recover that money. Of course, we'd be great from the top if we actually administered laws the way we would hope they'd be administered.
What's your thoughts on maximum sentences and minimum sentences for crimes that are not other than murder?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have some acquaintances who are judges and attorneys. I joke that I have a son-in-law and a daughter-in-law because both my daughter and son married attorneys. So I've got a lot of them, even judges, as I said. And of course, they have views that are a little harsher than others. I'm happy to see that we're heading in the right direction many places, with police review boards of sorts, to make sure that the law. We certainly don't want citizens with AR-15s taking the law into their own hands, but neither do we want police taking the law into their own hands. We want them to protect, as they promised to do. Where was I headed?
Maximum and minimum.
Oh, maximum, minimum. Yeah. So the judges I know would like to have, certainly the progressive ones would like to have the leeway to decide based on the type of crime, the number of times it's been done, the background of the person as well, and try to assess whether there's a chance that he or she can be saved. So That makes a lot of sense to me.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on DC statehood? Speaking of judges.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
Yep.
Good.
Tomorrow.
Okay. That's great.
Of course, that means you'll have to create a Republican state somewhere too.
Woo!
And don't forget Puerto Rico.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love you. Thank you. What are your thoughts on abortion rights?
Okay. So I don't know anybody who's pro-abortion.
Okay.
Okay. Nobody's pro-abortion. I'm not pro-abortion, right? I'd love to see the least number of abortions as possible, right? So the only question then is, how do we do that? Do we do it by not allowing any? We know that's impossible. We did that when I was a kid. And what happened was, back alley abortions killed not only fetuses,
Right
but
here
women.
In DC, we've seen it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's doctors that are supposed to be legitimate.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so we got to take the statistics, all the statistics involved. We know that there are lots of folks that have religious views. That's not, or at least up until recently, has not been the legal view. And that's fine, if that's the way they feel for them and their families and their communities, that's fine. I'd like to see us do as much as possible to not have any abortions. Make sure that if young people are sexually active, they use whatever precautions are necessary to make sure they don't have children, unless they want them.
Keeping sex education in schools.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree to an extent. I think that women should have the right to choose if they want to have an abortion, if it's not, the right time for them, or, but while I am a woman of God, I also agree that, I don't like the thought of abortion, right? But I think that a happy medium is just, if that's what you want, you should be paying fully out of pocket for that. There should be no expenses included in that as far as Medicaid, Medicare, insurance, none of that. I feel like it should come solely from your pocket if that's the decision that you are choosing to make.
Interesting. I'd never thought of it that way. We have to look at that and see, again, that's where prudence comes in, taking a look at all the alternatives and how best to handle it.
Gun violence is a serious issue in this country. It's a serious issue that this country is dealing with right now. Kids are dying while racism, mental illness, and hate crimes are sparking mass shootings. What do you feel is the problem, and can it be resolved? If so, how?
Okay, so obviously there are several factors involved here. And if you look at each, again, statistically taking the others in effect out of the picture, it's clear that if you look at other countries that outlawed arms like this, number of shootings went down, number of killings by guns went down. So it's hard to turn your head and say it's okay to keep AR-15s around. Before we had AR-15s, we had fewer mass shootings. So I think, and I believe that here again, the present administration is hoping to get rid of automatic weapons.
And need to visit ghost guns too. I think that some lawsuits should go out to some of these manufacturing companies for putting that information so accessible online to people. Well,
a law to, we register. I drove up here. I assume you did too. Your car is registered.
Yes.
It's not a lethal weapon, but many cars have turned today. In the last hour, people have been killed by them. Yeah. So you and I have to be licensed to drive them.
Yes.
Right? So why not? Also, insurance. We have to keep insurance, liability insurance. So if we do make a mistake. And again,
is that a requirement with a gun? Do you have to have insurance with a gun?
No,
currently?
I don't believe so. And maybe a statewide thing, but I don't believe so. So again, we have to be prudent about how we do it. But, if you have to pay insurance for a gun, if something goes wrong, which is reasonable. If somebody steals your gun because you didn't have it locked up and you're responsible, your insurance would have to pay. Your insurance would go up, and if it's high enough, you're going to take your gun and really hide it away, and But at the same time,
very good point.
But at the same time, though, having a gun to protect your home and property is perfectly reasonable. Hunting and hunting, especially if you actually eat what you kill. those are reasonable things to do. Otherwise, why stop at AR-15s? Why not go another step or another step? We don't allow anything more powerful than that. So why allow that? Because we know that will kill more. There are statistics that say half as many more people are killed by an AR-15 than other types of rifles.
You had a very interesting hat on when you came in, and I kind of want to touch on that topic a little bit. Okay. We'll show the hat on this part of the interview. Mm-hmm. But Governor Moore just established on March 31st as Transgender Day. What are your thoughts on the LGBTQ movement and the direction that it is going?
Okay, so you talk about God. If there is God, I don't know. I believe she probably created everything, every person, and our genes are made up in such a way, and maybe it's not all genetic, maybe it's a little bit of the environment as well. But nonetheless, these are humans who are harming nobody. I can't see why. I saw a picture today of somebody dressed as a woman reading stories in a public library to kids, and far less harm than other things that have happened of late in public places. So, yeah, no, like you said, my hat says, and there's more to it than just that, but it says, "Make America Good Again, this time for all of us," and all of us is spelled out in black, brown, yellow, red, purple, blue, green. So, and I do mean all of us. And the good part, I have to go back to when I grew up, because, as I said, I came here from Prague when I was 16 months old, and this country was very good to my parents. And my father was a tailor, my mother was a stay-at-home mother, and they could afford to raise us on the money my father made, and they were perfectly happy, especially given what had happened to them before we came here. But I got, and this is a question, I don't think we got to the third one, so this is a third one possibility.
Third point?
Yeah, the third point. This is a good one. That could be. So I got my education in Brooklyn, right through Brooklyn College. Brooklyn College cost $50. Not a credit, not a course, a semester tuition, $50.
What?
$50 from 1963 to 1967 when I was there.
Wow.
Okay, now that would be more now, but not much more. I mean, a few hundred. And because
I thought that we're being charged thousands for the same education, but I'm sorry, continue.
Okay. And, based on what you said before, because of the teachers that I had, some of which had been around since the end of the Depression, they were really good teachers. I had a great education. As a result, I had a state scholarship, $3,500 for 4 years. So tuition and other fees, let's say, was $200 a year. That's $800. So I had $2,700 for books and other, transportation. There were no dorms there. We all lived at home. So that was enough to pay for my education, totally, every cent of it. And so we need to make America that good again for everybody. Let me tell you one thing. I did not have one black in my classes back then. Thank goodness. Brooklyn College now is one of the most diverse public schools in the nation. In fact, I think they've won some awards for that of late. I think I remember seeing one black man walking to a evening class when I was there late one day. That was it. And I think he came from work because he looked very professional, tie and briefcase. So we have to make the country that good for everyone. And it doesn't matter race, color, creed, sexual orientation, whatever, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Well, what about the influence it's had on children? What are your thoughts on children changing their gender at a young age?
I need to go to the experts for that.
Okay.
I don't know. I know of several. I don't know their families personally, but my grandkids have been part of like theater groups. And so some boy-like figures on stage pointing out to me, and they were born girls, but they want to be boys. And I actually have a friend whose granddaughter wants to be a boy, or I don't know what that means really. So,
and I think that there's different scenarios that we see. Like you do see people that have gone all the way to the point of having the procedures and
right.
taking the hormones, and then you see people who just stresses the gender that they are and etc. But yeah, I think that there is, and I think that it will take time. Just like when it comes to social media, we're still having research,
yep.
and we're still getting studies done on that.
Right.
So we really do not know the long-term effects that it will have on children that are choosing to
right.
take the medication and have procedures done to change their
correct. And I don't know what is affecting them, whether, again, go back to genetics or the environment. Mm-hmm. But it certainly would be cruel to deny them their reality.
Yeah.
And that's true of any of us. Yes. Gaslighting people is not a good idea.
It's never a good thing. Right. I agree. Thank you for that. Very, very good response. As a soon-to-be two-time HBCU graduate, I know we talked on education, but I've seen both sides of a well-funded HBCU and an HBCU fighting to keep its accreditation due to lack of funds. If elected, how will you support HBCUs and HBCUs receiving grants and needing equal funds compared to surrounding institutions?
Okay, so
for it, now I'll give you an example. You look at Eastern Shore, and while they're not doing bad, they're not University of Maryland, comparing the two as far as campus and programs and opportunities.
Right. It's interesting. So it's difficult to not think of reparations when you ask that question. I mean, reparations, I've had some, I'll even say arguments with friends about what that means and what it looks like. And, again, we got to be prudent about this and recognize it. But I've given a couple of talks now, sermons on Martin Luther King Day. And so maybe I'm a little more sensitive than my friends because of the research I've done and some of the friends I've had. But certainly any funds that go into that, I find it hard to say they'd be wasted. And certainly part of a reparations package.
I love that. I've never heard that. I've never heard that HBCUs should be considered in the reparations that should be given to Americans.
Well, when blacks were brought here against their will, they were not allowed to learn to read or write. So here's the other end of it. Not only read or write, but, and look, we opened, I've been a member of the Association of Computing Machinery since I was a graduate student at Maryland in computer science, way back 50 years ago now. So I'm a lifetime member now. I don't remember when I first started seeing any articles written by women. Then all of a sudden, 70s came. And all of a sudden, we're opening up, not greatly, but a little more and more as the years went on, the computer science area to women. And now I think they're half the employees and half the teachers and all like. So why would we want to restrict employment or teaching or anything else by sex, race, anything, when we know the more people that we train, the better off we'll be. So yeah, let's do it.
This conversation has taught me so much, not just about, government and politics, but about you. And I am so grateful to have been able to meet you and to have this conversation. So thank you so much. I want to give you the floor and give you an opportunity to leave the guests with something you want them to remember you by. Well,
if you, the newest one is a Google website. So if you go to georgegluck.com, georgegluck.com, that was the old website, the green website, but on the top of that, you'll see a link to the new one. And then you can see, and that's under construction because we're not taking donations yet. And they've got to put a team together, as you said. But between the two, you can learn the history and where we are right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for this interview.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a great thing you're doing. And as I said before, this is my first time being interviewed like this.
Wow. Well, we try to make sure we open the door for it. When I ran for office, I would have loved to have an experience like this, and just giving me an opportunity as a new person on the scene to just be able to share my ideas and share my thoughts. So we reach out to everyone that's running for office to make sure that they have an opportunity to share their platform.
Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for your service as teaching. I appreciate that.